My wife and I were driving here tonight. It was about 6:30 our time. And I was saying we'd be halfway through class next week, which means that as of next week and from now on, we will go back an hour. We're going to shift back from 7 p.m. Pacific to 6 p.m. Pacific. So that helps all of you people out on the East Coast and Midwest to have a little not so late evening if you want to watch it live. So do make a note of that, and you'll be getting a notification of the change. But from now on, starting next week, our class will be an hour earlier. So do take note of that. Tonight's format, as usual, on Wednesday, the guy will give about an hour talk, and then we'll take a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back for questions and answers by both the people in the room here and those of you out there. Your time to be able to discuss something with Guy. Anything on your inner life, something maybe from tonight's talk, or something you're working on, that's good as well. And you can do that through any of the chat boxes or the question boxes on the either GoToWebinar, YouTube, or Facebook. So we have people behind the scenes if you have technical help, if you need technical help, and that you can go to those same places, or always email support@guyfinley.com, and someone back there will help you. All right, well, let's get started. I'm just going to read, first of all, those of you in the room, if you have a cell phone, please turn it off. And I'm going to read the topic tonight, and Guy will read the key lesson. Here's tonight's topic. Enter the perfect protection of the presence moment.
Good evening. God. You're supposed to be the cream of the crop. Yeah, like Campbell's soup. Let's try it again. Good evening.
Good evening.
Don't go to sleep. We're going to talk about that at great length this evening, the nature of this somnambulistic around in that you don't even know you're in, and that, by the way, you get upset when people remind you that you are asleep, and the reminder is always that you feel disturbed by something that isn't part of the dream you're having at that moment. The title of the talk and what we're going to look at is Enter the Perfect Protection of the Presence Moment. That idea of a presence moment was something I coined many, many years ago when, as a result of certain things seen and understood, it became clear to the speaker that there is only and always this moment, something that we don't think about much because our thoughts can't wrap their imagery around the idea that I go to bed, it's now, I get up, it's now, I'm sitting here, it's now, I'll be back here Sunday, it's now, I'll be on Insight Timer Saturday morning. It'll always be now. It'll never not be here and now, ever. And this living here and now is, as simply as I can put it, our awareness of the revelation of timeless creation that is never not being brought into existence, that is never fading from existence, and that is always being renewed in existence. And we are intended to experience that creation as a part of our own consciousness that is given the capacity to reflect that kind of relationship. But we're never there. So the idea of enter the perfect protection of the presence moment means that in such a moment as I'm describing, there's no past to that moment. There's no what I failed at. There's no how I hurt myself or somebody else in that presence moment. Nor is there a time to come when I won't suffer what I did or didn't do, what I lost or what was taken from me. All of that exists outside of the presence moment is part of a certain kind of hallucination of a mind that is asleep to itself, in itself, dreaming itself into existence. And we have no clue that that's taking place. We're going to look at it quite clearly. We're going to look deeply at this idea of time. The key lesson reads, whatever is created in time is a creation of time, and all creations in and of time must pass when their time is up. This is the most hated thought of all by human beings. That whatever it is that I think I've done, what I've got, my family, all of these things that I did, I created, that all of them not only are going to pass, but it is inevitable that they are already gone, because in the greater scheme of time, they have come and left. I'm just waiting for them. And whether we understand it or not, most of our lives is spent trying to prepare for a time we can't avoid. Most of our life spent preparing for a time we can't avoid. I want to avoid being, I know people, how many of you know people, they couldn't say a true word to another person if they had to. They're always fawning, pretending like they're a loving person. Why does a person like that? Because they are trying to avoid the fact that inwardly they are nothing like that. And by pretending, they can enter into a world where they are what they've imagined themselves to be, and there's no one there to challenge it, because if they see something about themselves they don't like, they can simply deny what they saw or blame someone for the unsightliness of their present nature. Everything that comes into time has a clock. We think we can reset the clock. You have a clock. Your body is the hands, the hours and the minutes that you can see as you age is passing by. But we think we can turn back the hands of time. Just go get an operation. Go find some way to freeze your brain. Your brain's already frozen. A creation of time will pass in time because the conditions that brought it into existence are themselves in time. This is why many years ago, I remember the first time I heard it when Mr. Howard, he said, it is wise to seek immortality because time defeats all other ambitions. I thought, that's like genius. Because it's so obvious. I've never had anything that I've succeeded at that didn't disappear in time. Even the comfort, the so-called security of the things that I've managed to manifest in quotes, which by the way, I didn't do at all, even those things rust. Neil Young had it right when he wrote the title of his album, Rust Never Sleeps. Because under the laws of time and conditions that bring into existence the content of what we call this world, everything in this world you can see it has risen and fallen and risen and fallen. So do our lives rise and fall. It is wise to seek ambition because time defeats all other ambition. Now, why, if I even suspected that's true, why am I unable to set down this constant spurring? I like the word spurring. It's a terrible thing that people do to horses. You put spurs on them and you kick them to make them go. Humans are spurred. They're spurred along by thoughts and feelings and reactions to conditions that challenge the kingdom that they have made in their own image. And they're spurred to restore it. They're spurred to bring about that balance again so that they can experience themselves as someone who is actually created and can maintain the kingdom in their own image. And the question is, if you're following me, and it's the point of our study, How do I mean, assuming you've even struggled with it, how do I set this down? Because whether we see it or not, and again, what we'll look at deeply, what is it that bothers me in any given moment? What am I troubled by in any given moment? Please, I'm asking you. I'm troubled by something that comes along and seems to threaten or interfere with my ambition. Now, you may not think to yourself that you have ambition because maybe you've achieved this or achieved that, but there is a constant ambition, a constant foment inside of the human being, making sure that everything that has been put in place stays in place. And it is my ambition, if nothing else, to ensure that I don't suffer any more than I have to. That's an ambition, to avoid suffering. Isn't it? How does that come to an end, all of that thought? Our study tonight, if you're interested at all, we're going to start with you, bringing you in early so I can make the point. Let's bring up the list. The list is, bada boom, bada bang. See how nice that is? If you could make one wish, what would it be for? If you could make one wish, what would it be for? And please, for your own sake, don't give me any of that saccharine, throat-gagging business about, I wish the world were a better place. That's what I'd wish for. No, you do every moment with your mind what your mind wishes for. That's what your wishes are for. Now, we're not saying we shouldn't have wishes. I'm just asking, what is it that you wish for? Like, how about, I just wish I could be happy. I wish that I was more patient. Simple. What are some real wishes that you have for yourself? And I'm opening it to the board. We're just going to spend a few moments because I got a lot to go through. John, what do you got?
I wish to be left alone.
There's a wish for you. But that's true. If I could summarize it, well, all day long, am I someone who's receiving with joy all of the people and conditions in my life? Or am I someone broadly saying no, 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 and occasionally yes if it looks like it'll serve me? He said, I wish I could be left alone. Patricia.
I wish I wasn't subject to moods.
Okay, so she said, I wish that I wasn't subject to being so moody. That's a good wish, don't you think? You'll see all of this. Who else? Jane says, I wish for a glimpse. Randall, I wish to always have my way. There's an honest person. That's right. Linda.
I wish that I could figure things out easier.
I wish that I had a mind like Einstein and could see and know all things at once. Over to the board. I wish pizza would not add fat to my body. I wish that I could eat like that person I despise who can eat everything and not put on a single pound. But Roger.
I wish I wasn't so tense.
I wish I wasn't so tense. That's a good wish. Now, Ellen.
I wish I could feel secure.
I wish I could feel secure. Anybody else in the room? Leah.
Nothing in my body hurts.
I wish I was pain-free. And I've spent a bloody fortune and I'm still not. Anybody else in the room over on the board? I wish I could redo my life with my current wisdom. Laura, I wish I wasn't so critical of others. I wish that I could be anxious for nothing, Claudia says. I wish I knew what to do, what was next with my life. Mariana, I wish I had more money. That's another honest wish. Anybody else in the room? I'm going through these. John.
I wish I could be less angry.
Less angry? I wish I wasn't a churning urn of burning funk waiting to go off when someone sets me. Anybody else in the room? I can't, it's kind of hard to believe. See, what you don't understand is, what do you do all day long? You are working on thinking about heading with ambition toward what you wish for. Tony.
I wish everything went exactly the way I
I wish everything went exactly the way I wanted it to go. That's a pretty good summary. Heidi?
I wish I could
I wish that I had the capacity to be what I know instead of seeing that I don't know what I dream I do. Patricia, and then we'll end with you.
I wish I didn't have to think about health.
I wish I wasn't so consumed with my health. Over on the board ever so quickly, I wish my kids would call. Drew says, I wish I could always meet a happy stranger. I wish I could hit my 5-iron effectively. I wish I was at my very best every moment. Okay, so let's suspend this. Now, I don't know, outside of the 5-iron business, is there anybody here who didn't have some of these wishes? All right, so take a deep breath. We're going to make a transition now. Take the list down. What's the root of every one of those wishes? What's the root of every one of those wishes, if you can see it? I'm wishing for a time to come when I will not be experiencing what I don't want to be. You could go through that entire list. I wish I didn't have to prove myself. Translation, I wish a time came when I was so secure that I no longer was afraid of people and fawning in front of them. You can't take one of these wishes. I set you up. Obviously, I do that on Wednesday nights, so that we can see that we all have these wishes. But that the basis of every one of those wishes is a time to come when I won't be in this kind of pain. Yes or no? Yes. Out loud, please. Yes. A time when I'll be free. Free of what? Well, we just went through this list, didn't we? Free of all these things that presently I feel like I'm a captive of. What we're going to look at is that you are not a captive of the name you gave. You are a captive of a consciousness that revisits a time in your life when that pain was there, and that you're forever trying to escape or change or reconcile that pain back then. So I look and I'm drawn into one form or another of identifying with that state. Because I'm not always anxious. At least I don't think I'm always anxious. I don't think I'm always impatient. But you give the certain circumstance, the condition in time that comes along, and that consciousness asleep to itself is triggered on the spot, is it not? And then all I want to be is not that. And that's what I call freedom, is freedom from being what I don't want to be in a time to come when I finally transcend this unconscious nature. Everybody still with me? This is an important point. That's our study tonight. So how do we even look at something like that? If my mind in truth is a mind divided, a mind that is divided into one part of it that looks at the past when it is triggered and reactive, and that when the mind brings up its own reaction, then resists its own reaction and has no idea that it's doing that. That is a divided mind, isn't it? First it brings something up and it goes, no, I don't want that. And it says the way I'm going to be free of that which I don't want is going to be in a time when I'm no longer a captive of what my mind just brought up, and that doesn't exist without my mind bringing that up. Please, do you see this? So here's several stories. I'm bringing stories in to involve you emotionally, so that you don't have to work with your mind too much, but rather you can start to feel certain things that are intrinsic in the stories themselves. First story. And by the way, we're all the characters in all the stories. Every last one of us in every situation. So here's a young princess. She's coming of age, and ever since she was small, her father and mother and all the people in the kingdom Everybody knows that this king and queen, what makes them the royalty that they are, is that it's reputed that they have a diamond the size of a small house. And it's in a vault protected by guards at all time, never without guards, and everybody longs with all of their heart to see this thing because all the money in the country is based on the value in that diamond. Do you understand? That's how everything's backed up with currency. This is not a political story, although it has overtones. And so from the time she was small, when she couldn't get in, no, not time yet. She was pacing back and forth and dreaming of the day when at last she can get into that vault and look at this magnificent diamond, and she can have all the security of knowing that one day that's going to be hers. When mom and dad are gone, and don't think that people don't think this, when mom or dad are gone, that's mine. Then everything's mine. So what do you think? Finally, she's comes of age, whatever that is, 15, 16 years old. And the king and queen call her to their royal chambers and say, we think it's time for you to see the wealth of this country. And you must be sworn to secrecy because we don't want anybody to know anything more than they do. That's how vast this is. Oh God, I can't. I mean, I've been in pain. I've been in pain. This little girl, I've been in pain since I was like 6 years old. I didn't even know it was pain, but I hungered. I thirsted for seeing this thing that would give me this sense of security. You get the picture. Do you understand yourself in this story? If not, you will. So finally they get there and dad does the things like you see in the movies, 18 tumblers and 6 bars slide, and then there's another door and that opens up and they walk in and it's pitch black. And she's straining to see, and then her dad turns on the light. And what do you think she sees? The size of a small house, a big lump of coal. She goes, where's the diamond? What do you mean, where's the diamond? You're looking at it. Wait a minute, I don't see a diamond. I'm looking at a lump of coal. He said, all it takes is time. The right pressure, he says, the right environment. That's why you're getting it. This is your inheritance. I've just described humanity. Only when we see the lump of coal, we never go to ourselves. No sooner do we see it's not a diamond. She's not, he's not, they're not, this security isn't that, all things pass. No more do we see that, then what happens? Instantaneously, something comes in, as the father would have the daughter believe. It's just a matter of time until this all gets straightened out, and then this will all be yours. What will all be yours? Next story. Take a nice deep breath. Here's two brothers. They've grown up together in a certain neighborhood, and now they're in their early 20s or 30s. And they have, with their father and their grandfather before that, every single week they have gone, there's a specialty shop in this town that makes the finest chocolates and candies. And what is it that you like so much? What did we have? Enchiladas, not enchilada. Gelato. There's no place in the world that makes anything better than this sweet shop. And so the brother says, let's go, let's get going. And the brother says, you know what, you go on without me. What do you mean you go on without me? What does that mean? We've been going here since the beginning of time. It's your favorite store. In fact, nobody talks about this more than you do. Each week we barely leave the place and you're already talking about coming back. You say, yeah, I know. Well, what's with you then? I don't understand. Why are you dragging your feet as if this isn't something that you really want to do? The brother says, well, I don't know. I guess you could say I guess you could say I've lost my taste for it. What? You've lost your taste for it? What do you mean you've lost? How can you lose your taste for something that you love so much? The brother says, because the temporary pleasure that I get there is not worth the extended pain that I know I'm going to suffer for going there. I don't want the pain anymore. And if that means I have to give up the pleasure, I have to give up the pleasure of it. And I don't want to, believe me, he said, but I no longer want to suffer what I am given to suffer as a result of giving myself what I want in time. Everybody understand that story? Yeah. Last story. Take a deep breath, because this is the payoff as my chair goes off of this mat. We're actually going to spend another $8 and buy a mat that doesn't disappear off the back of the chair. Okay. Two different brothers, two sisters. And they grew up together, college together, tech school together, they're in business together, and they are right on the threshold of this major deal. And they've been on pins and needles waiting for this to happen. You ever on pins and needles waiting for things to happen? Waiting on pins and needles, which is quite an accurate expression. And then an email comes in, and it's spelling it out. It says, this deal is looking really, really good. And it looks like it's going to clear the way with the board. There's just a few little details that have to be ironed out. And one sister's reading this, and she's jumping around the room, and she's all excited and everything like that over what this portends. You understand that, right? Yes? Yes. And she looks at her other sister, and her sister's sitting there. She has a smile on her face, but she's not jumping around. She's clearly not exhibiting the behavior expected out of something that's been brewing for the last 10 years. And she looks at her sis and says, what's going on with you? I mean, why aren't you more excited over this news? I mean, what it might mean for our venture, it looks like it's all going to come to pass. It's exciting, isn't it? Sister says, I'm not sure you'll understand. What do you mean I'm not sure? Try me. She says, I've lost my taste for tomorrow. I've lost my taste for tomorrow. Now, can you put that story in the frame of the brother who no longer wanted to go have the sweets because he understood that as pleasurable as it was, he would have to pay for what he took into himself? I lost my taste for tomorrow. Transition, nice deep breath. I've lost my taste for taking thought. In Scripture, Christ says, take therefore no thought for the morrow. For the morrow shall take thought for things of itself. Sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof. Take therefore no thought for the morrow. For the morrow shall take thought for the things of itself. Sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof. What is Christ talking about, and how does it relate to what we are studying this evening? Sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof. What does that mean? I'll tell you what it means in translation. It means that anxiously identifying with any thought created by an image of a time to come, by default creates evil. Any form of identification with a time to come is a form of evil. Why is it a form of evil? Because evil, in the real meaning of it, is that which separates a man or a woman from the divine. And when you have this thought about tomorrow, where you're going to go, what you're going to do, what you're going to get, the big deal that's going to close, things you've been waiting on for thousands of years finally get done, you can't see it, that you sit there all the time looking at what you think is this diamond, waiting to claim it, and it turns out to be a lump of coal. Because invariably, no matter what it is that comes, you will see that it did not bring you the freedom that you thought it was going to bring you. End of story. That's what the lump of coal is. The fact that conditions change. When they change the identification with the promise, suddenly it's threatened, and my joy turns into fear. My excitement turns into some kind of dread. And I never know why that happens, because I can't see to take no thought for tomorrow. I've lost interest in tomorrow. Oh, I wish I was able to give that to you. I've lost interest in worrying about what this means. I no longer care about what just happened relative to what might have come, because my life and my moment is here and now with this, not with anything that my mind tells me it means based on what it says it should have been or done. Because what it should have been and done doesn't exist without a past. That's the source of the pain. Do you see it? And it's so deep and asleep, this consciousness. It has no clue whatsoever that every time, without our knowing it at all, it fashions onto something. Oh, it can't wait to get a something going on, something that's going to do, something that's going to get, some money that's coming, someone who's going to give them something. It can't wait for those things, because as soon as the mind locks onto that object, it identifies with the object, and now who I am cannot be separated from the image, and who I am and the image can't be separated from the promise that when it finally comes to pass, I'll be whole and happy and free. But it's always in a time to come. It's always a promise. It's always a lump of coal sitting in a vault that we don't know is a lump of coal until somebody opens the vault and we're standing there and looking. This is what my life has become. Someone who's anxious all the time, someone who can't stop talking about problems, who never stops complaining or worrying about how they can fix some condition, so that my life is caught inside of this weird circle that I have no idea I'm in, that I'm always struggling to escape. And what is it that I'm always trying to escape? Is it the condition I'm trying to escape? Is it? No, it's the condition that changed and threatened some identity of myself. And so what I'm always trying to do is escape the experience of myself that wouldn't be there if it weren't for something I was identified with in the past. And because I'm identified with it in the past, when it's threatened, the only place I know to go is from the past to what? The future. I'm describing to you how the mind finally begins to grow quiet. So let's bring you in. How am I doing on time? Where's my clock? How many of you suspect your mind wanders? See how nice that was? First of all, do you know that you don't know your mind wanders? No, if you knew your mind was a wandering mind, you would never leave it unattended. Because what does it wander into, if not into time? Please see it. When your mind wanders, it's unattended. Where does it go? See, this is what I'm saying. You're not capable of observing yourself enough. But I'll help you see it. I'm driving in my car. Where's my mind? It's in the past. It's working on things. Stay present. It's working on problems. It's got people that aren't doing what they're supposed to do. It looks like something that I planned on, and I was so counting on that, isn't going to work out quite the way it was prepared to do. And now I've got to take other steps to make sure that whatever it was I had foreordained would bring me the freedom I seek, it's not going to take place. So I look like I'm sitting. You want to know how dangerous it is to be alive? You are sitting in a car next to 1,000 cars moving at 90 miles an hour, and everybody in every car fast asleep. And if it weren't for the body just taking care of itself, this world would come to an end. And it is coming to an end anyway, because finally the intellect's so overwhelming that it drives the body to destroy itself, trying to find the pleasure that it promises itself that it can't do. So let me keep going here. Where's my attention? Where's my attention? Is my attention not, if you can see it, lost and wandering through some kind of labyrinth of thoughts and feelings that appear uninvited, produced by changing conditions or what I'm looking at, so that every change in every condition produces a sudden flood of thoughts triggered by association, so that I'm always wandering through some labyrinth of memory as it tries to make itself fit the moment it's in. And if it can't make the moment fit the memory, then by God, it's going to change the moment so that it does line up with my past, and I'm therefore secure in being who I imagine myself to be. That's a long sentence, but do you see it or not? So here I am, and I'm driving, and I think, God, that went so badly yesterday. Or I'm sitting at home and having my coffee, and I'm looking at the financial report, or I'm looking at the news, and I'm looking at hurricane drive you nutsy. Whatever it is I'm looking at it, there's never not a problem. Haven't you noticed that? The only time there's not a problem is when you're stuffing your face with pizza, or drugging yourself to go to sleep, or dreaming about a time when you won't have a problem. When you go someplace, do something, get something. Where is my mind? Where my consciousness goes, experience follows. You can't separate experience from what the consciousness is involved in. Because you can dream you're doing something, but if the consciousness is involved in resistance or anger or worry or doubt, your experience of the moment is colored by that consciousness, and it sees in the moment what it needs to see in order to convince and confirm itself as the one who understands what's going on. That's why we're never wrong. Isn't it a miracle that we're never wrong? How many of you take umbrage with anybody that even assumes to suggest that you may not see the whole picture? I see the whole picture. Do you not? Where do my thoughts take me? I'm going to use two phrases now. First, and you'll see they're interchangeable. First, my mind, when I'm not present to it, is always visiting the land of when. The land of when. When what? When I'm free. The land of when. I'm a constant visitor to the land of when. And why am I a constant visitor to the land of when I've got the money, the health, when I look better, when things aren't the way they are, that'll be, where does the land of when, what is it, like a mountain, it rises out of what? The land of then. The land of when and the land of then. And they seem like they're totally different places. Don't they? The land of then. You know what happened back then? I wish I wasn't like that. I wish I didn't have a brother or a sister who treats me this way. I wish I didn't look the way I do. I wish that I had the break somebody else did. I wish that I wasn't getting old. That's all the land of then, isn't it? And when I'm looking at the land of then, what do I see when I look into the land of then? I look and say, I don't particularly like being in the land of then. I don't like these regrets. I wish this hadn't happened. And so here I am, and I think the land of then is this separate place filled with all these problems. And then, thank God, out of the land of then comes what? A land of when. It's a miracle. They're two separate places, aren't they? I don't think to myself that the land of then and the land of when are the same exact thing. But if you see it with me, you'll understand there is no land of when without the land of then. Do you see it? How is it that it seems, because don't you think, I was having this problem, I got this pain, this situation, this circumstance, my health, my family, whatever, I got this, I need to look forward. And then the mind by itself, it goes visit the land of when, which is what? It's like the Disneyland of positive images. It's like a place stuffed with all the promises of things that are sweet. And you go, I love this place. And you stuff your face with all these wonderful times that are going to come where you won't be suffering anymore. Your body will finally be the way it's been supposed to have been since God only knows when. And you can hit a 5-iron without any effort. Just had to throw that in. Except there's one problem with the land of when, and what is it? Well, even if it comes, it disappears. It lasts only for as long as the imagination sustains the identification with the conditions in the land of when. And as soon as the conditions in the land of when change, where am I then? I'm back in the land of then. I'm describing to you, if you can see it, this idea that you and I are always think that we've left the pain. I straightened him out. But the land of then, if it doesn't exist without the land of when, it means that then and when are a singularity in a consciousness that cannot see. It has divided itself up into time. It has divided itself into a nature that has these regrets, and it's looking back and it wishes it wasn't this way. And then that mind, without even knowing it, resists the experience of its own memories. And as it resists the experience of its own memories, it figures, I can get away from these memories by making a new memory for myself. By coming up with a new idea, a new place, a new time. Oh, thank God I'm going someplace bright and happy. Going to get pizza. No, that simple. Except one problem. That diamond that you imagine exists in the future always turns out to be what? And not that, how do I explain this to you? And that's not the end of the world. That's not that bad. In fact, the truth is, the only way in which the mind finally stops being a time jumper, pool of time to pool of time, the only way that happens is when at last it actually sees that that's what it's doing all the time. And that I couldn't feel, and one day, God, I swear to you, if you work, one day you will no longer be the victim of any anxiety. Because anxiety doesn't exist without then and when. This is the then, I don't want to be like this, I wish it wasn't coming. Well, maybe this will come and I'll get this done. Suddenly, I'm not secure, I'm anxious because I'm identified with what I hope is going to free me. And then it never frees me because it can't free me. Why can't the land of when free me from the land of then? Why can't the future free me from the past that I don't want? Because they're one consciousness. One nature, divided. And forever, because this was the picture I had in my mind when I was going over this. First, let me bring up key lesson number 2, please. Just to make this, put a little point on this. I'll read it to you. Maybe you'll have to take time to understand it later. But if you've understood anything I've said, it says, if we ever look closely, we would see that the fear we have of the future is always dressed as a beggar. But if we dared even a closer look, we see that not only does that beggar bear a striking resemblance to us, but he's dressed in our clothes and is in our shoes. If we ever look closely, we would see the fear we have of the future is always dressed as a beggar. When you come up with what is going to free you from your fear, you don't see a beggar, but you become the beggar when the moment changes and you suddenly don't have what was promised to you by the future. Suddenly, I'm a beggar again. But the fact of the matter is, I'm not a beggar again. I was always a beggar. I was always making deals, negotiating, thinking things through, coming up with a time when I wouldn't be this way, so that at last I would have, in the tomorrow I imagine, the end of this torment of being someone who has to perform, who's got to get this done, who has to be a certain way and appear like this. And one day, I've lost interest in tomorrow. I have no interest in it. Which is the same as saying I have no interest in identifying with anything that time tells me will free me from the pain I'm in this moment. Because the pain I'm in this moment is not my pain. That's the rub, isn't it? It's always when I'm correcting everybody about, I did this and I did that. You didn't do nothing. What you are is a human being asleep in a level of consciousness that throws the word I around like an identity badge at some corporate affair. That pain of what you don't want is not your pain, and what it doesn't want is not yours. It doesn't know what to do with what it has made of itself, and so it makes a new self in a time to come where it won't have to deal with what it created for itself in its sleep. Are you following me? I don't want to go too fast. I so badly want you to feel what I'm saying to you. Are you? Do you understand? When I was thinking of this, I got to keep trucking here. Did you ever go to La Brea tar pits? Back in the day in Los Angeles, they had the La Brea tar pits. And they have tar pits all over the world. And you don't even need to go to La Brea tar pits where you can see from time to time this bone of some Tyrannosaurus, kind of pop up and ooze back in the savannah, in the jungle of Africa. When the drought comes, all kinds of creatures go to get a drink of water, and they get stuck in the quicksand, in the mud. And you've seen it or heard it, and you know what they do, don't you? They just struggle to get out. And the more they struggle to get out, the deeper they sink into the mire. I'm telling you that is exactly what it is to be a human being. An incessant struggle to escape the stickiness of a past that we say we don't want, but that we can't wait to jump into. Because when we jump into it, it gives us a place to go jump where we won't be stuck anymore, where the struggle will come to an end. How many more years are you going to struggle to get past a fearful moment? Do you understand that? How many more years are you going to struggle to not look anxious? How many years are you going to struggle trying to work everything out so that everything trips down that line that you've imagined you have to go in order to claim the diamond at the end of it? How many years does a man or a woman do that? And I'll tell you, they do it until they see that the diamond they imagine is a lump of coal. Because that's all this level of consciousness can do, is imagine freedom. It knows nothing of it. It knows nothing of freedom. All it knows is its own promises to escape the pain that it creates by resisting its own content. And every time the content comes up, it actually believes it's different than the experience it's having, because it just creates a new experience for itself where it won't be suffering from that. Everybody still tracking with me? How does that happen? Keep going. How many of you have found, actually that was an old story, wasn't it? A lump of coal in your Christmas sock. Where do you think that came from? I was expecting this, and I got a lump of coal. Now, we didn't get a lump of coal, but if you ever got socks like 10 years in a row, it was just like a lump of coal. Why did I have to get to my 60s or my 70s or whatever it'll be why did it take so long to realize that every single time I'm looking at a moment and trying to figure out how to be free of the pain in it, the pain wouldn't be there if I hadn't already imagined a form of freedom in the past, in the promise of something, in how things should unfold. And that how many times do I wait outside that treasure room of time, believing that something in time is going to free me? And the answer is until I finally see it. Until it's finally clear. But now I have to ask you, coming to the exercise portion, why don't I see it? How many of you understood a little bit about this? We are in a consciousness, a level of being, a kingdom, a virtual kingdom, whose inhabitant exists as something that believes it is other than what it doesn't want, and that it can get what it does want when it's clear enough on what troubles it, so that it is in the land of when and the land of then, and it always thinks it gets out, but it never gets out because it's a captive of that kingdom. It's a captive of that kingdom that doesn't know it's a captive of that kingdom. If you've understood anything. You get this a little bit? Why doesn't it know it's a captive of this kingdom? How many times do I have to go through worrying about what's going to happen about this and what about that, and God, and burying any person who will bear long enough to listen to what I'm afraid of. Listen to my anxiety. How long? How long does that go on? When does it stop is the question. Are you ready? It stops when you actually realize that that moment that causes this sudden resistance is presently a point of what we would call an inflection. Something comes along and it hits this consciousness, and this consciousness bats it away. Boom. Call it deflection if you want, but inflection is when you strike two stones. When they strike, when those stones strike, instead of a spark, off I go from the time that I don't want into the time that I need. Boom, like that. And I'm never there to see that I've gone from the land of then to the land of when, and then I never see in the land of when the point comes to prove me there was a lump of coal and not a diamond, then I'm inflection again. And this consciousness battered back and forth, validated by its fear. Validated in its integrity and its intrinsic nature by its anxiety. Imagine a human being who feels validated by the extent to which they're tormented by an ambition that has never proven to bring them life or love or security. That's what we're talking about. Are you getting the picture? Can that mind ever make a fresh start? Can that mind ever make a fresh start? But don't you always think to yourself when things are going sour, and then you imagine the pastry shop? No, look, the stories were meant to bring you into a whole phenomena, a system of self, a circle. All of a sudden, this pretty sour. Look how, God, this went to hell in a handbasket, and now what am I going to do? What's going to happen? In that moment, what happens to the mind? Plan, new plan. A time to come when what is sour will be sweet. And then maybe the plan comes to pass, and God help us, sometimes they do, don't they? But when the plan comes to pass, then you're left with what? Did it set you free? Or now are you in that world, in that plan, where that thing turns out to be a lump of coal because it wasn't quite as you imagined it as being? So there's this endless dissatisfaction. That's the land of then, and the land of when is the promise of freedom from the experience of being an unhappy camper. And both are an illusion. Both are an illusion. Now, I know this, you have to see it. Because the more you see it, what happens when then shows up, what happens in that moment? There's this passage I've always loved. I've spoken of it endlessly because of the depth and breadth of it, certain of this. And it's not just Jesus. These beautiful, true diamonds of understanding, of a perception that was outside the land of when and then, so clearly that it could begin to recognize the futility of taking thought, because it could see the evil thereof sufficient to the day. And the evil is that I'm someone not only perpetrating the idea that the promised land is coming, but I involve everybody in my disappointment when it crashes, and then I'm full of pain and I drag people into my pain, hoping that in commiseration we'll be able to find some kind of contentment in a day to come. It's all the same thing. So what is it that's going on? What did Christ say? Listen up, put it all together now. Said what? You cannot serve two masters, for you will love one and despise the other. I've talked about this at length. Now we have seen, and I've explained to you, that when Christ said you can't serve two masters, what he was saying is that there's a single master called an unconscious mind with its imagination that produces endlessly want and not want, that produces then and when. That's what it does. Isn't that what desire is? Want and not want. I don't want then. How would I know? How could I resist what just happened unless it's not when? It's not what I want. and want and not want are inseparable in that consciousness that does not know. Whatever it wants, it doesn't want, and whatever it doesn't want, it wants. It doesn't know that about itself. I've covered that enough, yes? You cannot serve yesterday and tomorrow, for you will love one and despise the other. You cannot serve time and expect your ambition to come to an end. To find out what is truly immortal requires going beyond time, which means going beyond the consciousness that creates it endlessly for the purpose of escaping the content of itself that it helped create, and then tries to create a new world for itself where it won't experience its past that it keeps returning to every time conditions require it. Do you see this? Does yesterday exist without tomorrow? Does yesterday exist without tomorrow? Does tomorrow exist without yesterday? Please. Are they inextricably tied together? So if there's no tomorrow without yesterday, and yesterday is where tomorrow comes from in my mind, because there's yesterday, what I did, what I didn't do, my inability, my limitations, there's yesterday. I can't stand it back then, but thank God there's tomorrow. Now, I'm not saying to you that you shouldn't understand and work in order to, if you want, create a better tomorrow for yourself. But you are a fool if you believe the tomorrow you imagine when you will be secure is the same as the security you're seeking. Because the security you seek is in the image of security, and the image of security is not when, it is then. It belongs to a time past and to a conditioned consciousness that has created the idea of security, so that in the imagined idea, the imagined self would at last feel whole and safe. And it never does and never can. Tomorrow cannot free me from yesterday. And every time I'm negative, it's because I'm resisting something, and you cannot resist something without being in the past. You cannot resist a moment without something in your mind having identified and claimed and named a condition, and as soon as it names and claims the condition and the resistance starts, I am then. I'm back then. I'm reliving in one form or another the actualized, the revitalized memory. And as the memory comes up, I go, I don't want that experience that I just, by the way, reactivated. It was reactivated. And as it's reactivated, I have to escape it. This is the circle. This is the struggle. So what do you think the exercise would be? Bring up the last key lesson, please. It is a summary of the talk. And if were I you, I would write it down or download it, and I would study this until literally, not the cows came home, but the cow inside of you finally left you in the field by yourself or something. Ready? If we ever look closely, no, this is not this. Please bring up the third key lesson. Oh, it's me. I don't have it on my screen, huh? That's fine. It's all right. I've got it in front of me. Any tomorrow we imagine cannot free us from some painful moment in our past, because whatever the nature of that time we hope to come will free us does not exist apart from the time we hope to escape. Any tomorrow we imagine cannot free us from some painful moment in our past, because whatever the nature of that time we hope will come to free us, it does not exist from the time we hope to escape. It is one thing. It is one thing. The more you see it as one thing, the less likely you are to go along with being divided into someone who believes that you can escape the experience of your own consciousness by identifying with another experience the same consciousness offers you. That is how you eventually bring to an end thought. Because you simply can't take thought for tomorrow anymore. You literally, Christ's words literally come to life in your life. I can't take thought for tomorrow. Why? Because I see now every time I take thought for tomorrow, I'm in torment. It's torment that takes thought for tomorrow, not you. Not you. Start being aware of the whole of what it feels like when you start taking thought for tomorrow, and I guarantee you, your awareness of what's going on will bring us a gradual end, a gradual willingness on your part to suffer that unconscious nature that is the father of time, that keeps time in place as a promise that you'll find freedom in, but that never deliver you to the freedom that it promises. Then you'll understand temptation, which always has to do with an identity in time, and you'll understand what it means to be gradually liberated each time you see more clearly everything that we've talked about. The land of when is connected to what? Then and when. One and the same. See that, and you'll start to see freedom that you can't imagine in the presence moment. Let's take a break, come back and have our dialogue.
Welcome back, everyone. We're going to get started with the Q&A part of our time tonight, but in just 1 minute, I wanted to say this is the last chance this month to be able to, or last chance's offer is going to be available, and we've offered it. It's one you do definitely want to take advantage of, and it's called "To Touch the Timeless Mind: Make the Million-Year Leap in Human Consciousness," and it's a 2-hour series, and it's basically, if for a $10 donation, you get this 2-hour thank you gift from the foundation for your donation. There's an easy way. It helps it helps the foundation, and helps you as well. All these free classes are sponsored by the Life of Learning Foundation, where Guy is the director. So, and our whole mission is to take these ideas as far and wide as we can possibly. So here's a way you can do it. You can go to guyfinley.org/timeless, and you can just go there, and it'll tell you how to make a simple $10 donation or more, and then you can you'll receive the MP3s on that as well. Also, if you want to give any donation at any time, guyfinley.org/donate, you can do that at any time as well, and that helps us. If you're feeling something from these talks and this work, and you'd like to give back, we appreciate it. As well, we appreciate all of you who are continuing to help us right now, as many of you online are already doing that. So thank you. All right, I think we're going to go ahead and get started here. Let me see if I can remove something from there it is, my screen. So let's bring Guy back on. And Guy, do you have anything to say, or should we just dive in?
If we have someplace to go, let's get going.
All right. Everyone, if you're on YouTube or Facebook, you can go in the chat box and write a question in. And those of you on GoToWebinar, let's go ahead and raise your hand. Just click on that little hand icon, and you'll come into the queue, and we'll bring you on. So I see Namita there, and I'll unmute you, Namita, and I know you how to do this. Just unmute yourself.
Hello, Guy.
Hi, Namita.
So, Guy, I have been experimenting with all the things that I've been learning from you, and one thing that bothers me is like all the right teachings that I hear from you or that I've learned in the past. Like I tend to bring those into the present moment. Like I have to remember, I remember what you said, and I bring it in the present moment, and then I'm not present anymore. So how do you use all the teachings that I've heard, or that I know from the past, and apply it to this present moment? Or
I understand, Namita. I understand.
Yeah.
I can look back actually into my teenage years, certainly in my 20s, maybe early 30s. There were very distinct moments. One would call them, in one respect, a certain objective moment in a person's life where, just like the soil that is ready for the seed, they belong together, and when they come together, something else takes place. Well, for instance, Namita, I can remember when I was 17. Yeah, 17. And I was lucky, blessed in a way. I had been introduced to a man who was, in his own way and time, a fairly illumined individual. At the time, one of the oldest disciples of a very well-known, and I would say respected, teacher from the East. and I was in his library, and I was always, in my arrogance, I always thought wherever I was belonged to me, so I could just rifle through whatever was there. And I was looking through his library while I was waiting for him to come in, and pulling books off the library and off the shelf, and I pulled one of the books off the shelf. And this is exactly how it happened. And I just opened it randomly, and I read a paragraph. And when I read the paragraph, my knees started to shake. I got nauseous, I started sweating, and I fell to the ground. Because it said something that I had no idea I'd been waiting for my whole life to hear. A simple idea about a certain kind of awakening. And I just, to this day, I can remember everything about it. I remember the smell, I see the shelves, everything about it. Now that moment, that was just a moment, Namita, but it was so strong. The idea when I heard Mr. Howard say, it's wise to seek immortality, time defeats all ambition. What does that mean to a 28-year-old kid? None of these things have meaning in and of themselves, but when you hear them, they find a place in you, don't they? And that's what we want to feed, is that seed. I'm not gonna sit and try to create a garden for myself. That's insane. Eventually you see that. But there are certain ideas that I know are true beyond the shadow of a doubt. So why do I need, although again, I'm gonna repeat, Namita, it's fine. These ideas come to your mind. They don't come to your mind by accident. They come because the condition has triggered something in your consciousness that's bringing up an idea that can meet the moment new instead of the old mind bringing up the old ideas to deal with it. Stay with what you're given. Just stay with what you're given. Don't try to make something, Namita. And you know that I know you. Don't stop trying to make yourself awaken. There's no bigger waste of time on the planet. Let awakening take place. And you let it take place by not deflecting these moments, and certainly not by calling on something to console you, but by remaining, Namita, as present as you can in this presence moment. Stay there as long as you can. And then when you see a day later you didn't stay there or whatever happened, now you have another impression. And we build on these impressions. We learn to use the impressions to be the matrix of a certain foundation, a basis of our work. It takes place by itself. Any man or woman who tells you that they put this life together in themselves and organized it is a lunatic. God, that awareness, is self-organizing. Thank God it's self-organizing. So all I have to do, Namita, all you have to do is just get the heck out of the way. That's the hardest thing there is to do. But one day when you see how you are in the way, because when you did get out of the way and suffered a little bit of being in the way, then you realize, you know what? I actually got something that I couldn't have imagined I got because I didn't try to make my way. I let the way be shown to me. That's always it, Namita. Let the way be shown to you. And you can't fail because it's always there. Everything I talked to you about today, people in the room, everything I described is right in front of you all the time, but you don't see it, right? Now I see something I didn't see. I have new eyes that can begin to see with a new idea the fact of something. The more I see the fact of that new idea, the more it becomes integrated into my consciousness, and the more I want my attention. I want my attention. I'm not interested in tomorrow anymore. Let's go on, Doug.
All right, Guy, we have someone else in the queue, Billy. I'm going to mute you, Billy, and then you would click on your microphone. There you go.
Hello, Guy. Can you hear me?
Hi, Billy. I sure can.
I just wanted to say that I'm in my 60s, and I read Vernon Howard's Mystic Path to Cosmic Power in my 20s.
Yeah.
And I remember very vividly that it resonated with me so much, but I realize now I had no idea what he was talking about at the time. But I thought I gave the book away to a friend, and I never saw it again. And just recently, it turned up again, the original book that I was reading in my 20s. And I've revisited the concepts, and they just mean totally different, and it's just a huge insight into the human condition.
Yes.
I just wanted to thank you so much for keeping those teachings alive and for being in the moment and presenting them. And so God bless you, and keep up the great work.
Thank you, Billy. Lovely to hear from you. I assume you're either in Down Under or South Africa. Where are you from, Billy? He's off.
Australia, Down Under.
Down Under, yeah. I love it. Love the country, and I'm glad to hear from you. And how much better is that? You know, those years, Billy, were not lost. Something had to grow some roots, something had to open, something had to be able to take something in, and then all of a sudden that which I sensed was good, now I start to experience the good of it. That's what we want, the experience of the good of God, the experience of the good of being a human being who no longer wants to let his mind wander. Stay close, Billy. Nice to hear from you.
Thank you, Billy. I had to mute you. There was some static going on, some interference, so thank you for joining us. And go ahead and raise your hand now. We still have time. I have 3 written questions, Guy. I'll come on and bring...
There's a certain...
Should I go or someone
there's a
coming
certain
up?
young lady that wants the microphone. You may know her.
Hi, my name is Barbie. So today I was at the supermarket and I heard a song, you know, and how they played music in the background, and it was about bring me a higher love. And the other day I heard a song, it was kind of an anthem like, someday I will be free. You know, we all want freedom. Someday we'll be free. And, you know, you kind of resonate with that, but those songs also bring up a sadness because it's like I was talking about, it's all in the future. Someday I will be free. Well, first of all, who is the I that will be free?
Bring me a higher love.
I love that song, but it's all like, I don't have it now. I'm going to have it.
I understand.
I'm going to have it, but it's not now. And you have said, freedom is now or never. And so but I'm like, wait a minute, it's now or never, but I don't really feel free, but it's also not in the future. But when you were saying just to Namita, I believe, like, just stay in the moment as long as you can. Just grasp that little moment of now whenever you can. I can't really describe it, but it's not in the future, but I haven't really experienced it now. Does that make any sense? I don't know. It's like...
Babs, it does. You know, imagine you'd never heard classical music in your whole life, and then you hear Beethoven's Ninth, or you hear his Bach, and I feel that.
Yeah.
What is that? And that's what you're experiencing. You for the first time, instead of boogieing down the give me a higher love, I'm right there and I'm all caught up in the sensation and I'm free. You understand, that's just a dream.
Yeah.
And if you can stay awake in the dream, then you can start to enter into the world where dreams are revealed instead of being a captive of the dream of the boogie of give me a higher love or whatever the heck it is that captures us, because it does. And the sadness, Barbara, is that you know that it's possible, but you're in prison.
Right.
Before you never knew you were in prison.
That's right. But it's just one moment at a time.
And it's not even that.
Well, one awakening at a time.
Awareness is not divided into moments. The experience that we give ourselves is divided into moments. So I have this experience of awareness, and then I believe the experience of awareness is awareness, and it's not. Awareness is simply being present to all that is unfolding inside of me, including the happiness and the sadness in the moment of hearing that song. I don't need to more. See, you want to know. It's killing you. You want to know. You want to know why you're feeling what you're feeling, when you're feeling it, what to do with the feeling, and all of that belongs to then.
Right.
Just be.
Right.
And you can't work at that outside of working at seeing where it is you're not in the moment.
Right. But it's like when you said freedom is now or never. I want to, I mean, here, I want to understand it, but it's like I feel the truth of that.
So you're going to have to get to the point where your friend invites you to the pastry shop and you go, you know, I love pastries and I'm tempted beyond all question, but I'd rather have the knowledge, I'd rather, how do I say, instead of the pleasure of the short term, of the fantasy, of the dreaming and all, instead of that, I know the long-term effect of being temptation. I know temptation.
Right.
And I know the long term is not good. It's not worth it.
And to step out of that dream.
And then I have to bear the temptation, don't I?
Yeah.
I'm present to the temptation, so I consciously suffer that level of consciousness. I sell everything for the sake of being present to its activity instead of being a captive of it.
Thank you.
Got it? Ellen's coming up. Let's take one of the questions, Doug.
Okay, here's a question from Isabella. She asks, I'm in the place that you described as being uninterested in tomorrow. I'm not depressed, just feel, meh. I understand this is part of the dying process, but will the joy appear in the moment, in the presence eventually?
This is hard for us to understand, and as best I can explain it, put into words, I will. There's no joy in freedom. Because for there to be joy and freedom, there has to be someone who thinks they're free. Freedom is freedom. Joy is joy. There's no one there who has been freed. That's the illusion. What did I just ask you the whole talk? What do you wish? I wish for this, I wish for that. I wish to be free of my past, of who I imagined myself to be. And when at last I see that my answer to how I escape, how I imagine I am, is to imagine another me, I finally realize I'll never find freedom in imagination. Freedom is when the imaginary self dies to the illusion of a separate identity from God. That's what freedom is. And then if you want to use the word joy, the quiet joy is that you're no longer dragged into a world where you're delivered into the hands of darkness that promises light to free you. You're just there. You don't suffer anymore unconsciously, and everything that you are given to suffer is the continuation of the development of your consciousness, so that every moment is the furtherance of your possibilities instead of you further involved in a prison that promises one day you'll get out. That's what joy is. There's no you to have joy. I'm not saying don't have joy, but most of us don't know what joy is. Even at the simple level, we don't know what joy is. For me, joy is when things line up with the way I expect them to go. But isn't there a joy when you go outside and you see that sunset? Isn't there a joy if you're lucky enough to hang out with wild animals and you get to experience their nature? Isn't there a joy in that? I know there's a joy in that. But there's no me having joy in it. It's just the joy of the observer and the observed as a singularity. And then when the conditions pass, then you're back into a world where, God help us, the mind starts to wander because it's looking to placate itself with something. Ellen's on.
Hello, my name is Ellen. So the conversation you had with Barbie made me understand something, I think. I just wanted to come up and say it.
Yeah.
Ellen's idea of freedom, of love, of joy, of anything that she's imagining in the world of when, or suffering from in the world of then, it's all conditional.
Exactly.
So it's not the real thing. It's a made-up thing in her imagination that's in time when this condition is like you just said, when the condition lines up, then I'll feel this way. It didn't line up in the past, that's why I'm sad now. Ellen cannot imagine anything that isn't conditional.
Precisely.
That's this false nature.
So look, so put it together, and you help everybody.
Yeah.
Here I am, Ellen saying, I'm beginning to see that I can't imagine anything that for the fact of imagining it is conditional. First of all, it doesn't even exist apart from the mind that makes it something. It's conditional. So I never really realized that before. So now I have this suspicion. Now hold on a second. I'm beginning to suspect that if I'm imagining it, it's conditional, and I know if it's conditional that those conditions belong to when and then. So if I identify with it, I'm dead in the water. I've got a lump of coal.
Right.
Then the struggle starts. That's the struggle. To not go with the temptation, and all temptation is to complete myself through the land of when and then. End of story. Now you have something definitive to work with.
Yes.
Go to work.
Yes. And that's being. I was going to say, so the ultimate goal is being, but there I am back in when and then.
Right.
She has to just
Yeah.
get out of it.
Being isn't a goal.
Right.
It is what you are.
Yeah.
That you don't know you are because you have the goal of being.
Yeah. And she's just always in the way, putting her hands in it. So, like you said, so that's where I have to work.
Now you know. I'm going to have to sell everything, aren't I? Do you understand that now? What am I selling? In the end, nothing. I'm selling an imagined time for the sake of an imagined time. And when all of that scene is imaginary, lo and behold, I have sold all because I no longer sell myself for the sake of that identity. Simple, isn't it? Well, in one respect, you'll see one day it's so obvious, it's unbelievable how I could have been that asleep, but that's what it takes. Over to you, Doug.
All right, Guy, we have two questions that we talked earlier about, two leftover questions from last time.
Yes.
Do you want to take one of them? We're almost at the top of the hour.
Pick one and then...
Bottom of the hour.
Yeah, just take one.
Okay. So let's take Mary Lynn's question. She asks, why is this world so out of kilter with extreme weather, fires, violence, craziness, shootings, etc.?
Especially when it's filled with someone as nice as I am. Do you know where... I've tried to help you see this, Marilyn. Where does fear come from? Fear comes from the disparity between then and when. The special writing said that if I look closely, the face of fear is a beggar. Tomorrow's a beggar. It means that the tomorrow that I plan and hope for already contains the fear that it won't be that way. That's a beggar, isn't it? Now, what happens when a man or a woman believes in fear? What happens when I believe that my when is mandatory for me to be who I imagine that I am? What happens to that human being? Exactly. John said, they become desperate. You want to know why the world is the way it is? Because it is filled with 7 billion desperate human beings, each and every one trying to prove to him or herself that the world they've imagined is a real world, and the world be damned, I will get and take what I need from it to make sure that it is the way I've imagined it. And when you have that, you have this world. You, on the other hand, those of you listening, those of you here, I was going to start the whole talk with this, and I'll end with it. What does a shark know about a star? Nothing. Doesn't even know it exists. Most human beings have no idea that there is another kingdom that they are already within, and that upon entrance into it and awareness of it, they are liberated from the lower kingdom, where conflict and violence and crime and all the rest of that is par for the course. What you have to do is understand that most human beings not only don't care about that world, but want nothing to do with it, even if they suspect it's true. You are alone. You are alone. Don't look for this world to help you to confirm or conform to your ideas of what it means to be free. You have inside of you a freedom that was given to you at birth. To claim that freedom, you must die to everything that has taken it from you, which is the ideas of this world, its images and the identities derived from that. You will be alone. No one will be there. Who was there with Christ on the mountain when he was tempted to let the cup pass? Who was there with him? Every instance in which, with Buddha, when Mara showed up, every instance, when the true moment comes, when conscious suffering says, what do you choose? You are alone. And nobody can help you, and nobody will be there with you. But if you are there in the fullness of that moment, there is something that has brought you to that moment to take you through it, if you will be willing to receive the information offered in that moment, which is always through what you see and what you no longer can be. Good night.